continuing saga. There it is. I'm going to go dramatic today of hospitality marketing, live show number 298. And with me is the ever wonderful Miss Adele Gutman. Hi, good morning, Adele. Or
Good morning. Congratulations. Getting so close to the big
the
300.
big 300. Yeah. It's interesting. I was trying to tell somebody um, that if you listen to our shows back to back, you could go for about a month.
Incredible.
I don't know if anybody I would think that they do that in interrogation rooms, maybe something that they is like talk or we'll make you watch another episode. No, I'll tell you. I don't know, but it is quite a lot. I do come across some of our older episodes when Tim had hair. That's how far back. And I didn't have a ponytail, which is actually not that far back. It's only about a year back. But it's kind of neat to see and to see how it. I wouldn't say evolved because it's kind of always been this way. I mean, we've enjoyed your company with the pleasure of your company for how long has it been now? It's been almost a year, hasn't it? How long?
Well, I left my last company, which was the Library Hotel Collection, but it wasn't really until later in the year when I realized I should just go ahead and move to South Carolina and start something of my own. And actually, I'm still in the seed planting and establishing process. So
Well,
I think it took me 40 years to master the hospitality business. It might take me a little while to master the podcasting, public
now
speaking,
you're
and
an old hat at it already. Your podcast is already pretty great and consistent, and all this good stuff with it. So I think you're selling yourself short on the adoption speed. But I have to say, you probably reflect a very interesting. I'm noticing now. Just from personal note, we were looking to buy a house. We've been keeping an eye out for things for a long time. But when we first moved down here, we downsized from Texas. Now, wow, 4 years ago, and we had a condo here that we kept because we always thought that would be our retirement place and whatever. And so we moved into it and downsized it, but we knew we didn't want to work there and live there because it was too small to do that. So we went over into some office space conveniently in walking distance from that, which has been a blessing in disguise with COVID because for us, then we can stay away from everywhere. We walk our dog back and forth to the office and spend our work days in the office and then go home. That said, we always kept an eye on the houses, and it's hard. We've decided to step away from that concept for now, where we were looking at houses that were $250,000, $270,000, $280,000, 450, 500 right now, untouched from when we last saw them on the market because we're that familiar with the market. We know we can actually see the same houses, and we're like, wow.
yeah, I think I saw a statistic on the news recently that Florida housing went up like 173% or something crazy like
I would
that.
believe it. Actually, I would. It is mind numbing. And again, not for houses that oh my gosh they replaced the kitchen or they did this or they did this, but it's like nope, same pictures we saw a year ago or a year and a half ago when it was selling for under 300,000, and now it's over 400 and almost 500,000 for the same house. And it's just because the demand, that shift. And I think the reason why I brought all this up was, you represent a little bit of that because you relocated. You went from New York and you went to where you are now. And from that, you changed your lifestyle. You've changed what you do. And it's changed your perspective on travel, I guess, in a way. Before it was travel because you're centered to New York, travel because of what you're doing with Library Collection. And now it's less about the travel. I don't know. Film me. I mean, how do you see when this thing starts happening more in a normal way? How do you see what your world's going to be like?
Well, you know what? I traveled so much for work that I really wanted to chill when I had any time off, which was so limited. We have so limited time off in America, and I didn't want to. I just wanted to chill. But my husband is like, we have to go someplace exciting. I have way too much excitement in my life, and I just wanted to go someplace where it was green and warm. And here now, I live in a place that's green and warm. I have beautiful resorts that I can drive to. And that was just not something I thought about in New York City. I just thought about, going to another country, or perhaps combining a trip to Budapest with a visit to Austria, or Slovakia, or Slovenia, or whatever it was nearby. How do I combine visiting family in another country with some other countries in the area? I definitely think of everything, because I can relax beautifully right in my vicinity. And there are so many wonderful places to do it. I mean, Charleston, my goodness, it is such a hospitality town. And
Mm.
of course, Myrtle Beach is so close. So I do really think of it differently. But so for right now, traveling is just a change of pace, driving somewhere else. And maybe in a year or two, I'll start having, oh, I want to explore Croatia, for
Sure,
example.
sure.
That's
Get
going
that
to
travel
happen.
itch again. Empathize with what you're saying, because for us, obviously living in Florida and having the beaches and places that we do, going to the Caribbean is not as exciting as, say, when you were living in New York and wanting to go to the Caribbean. It's like, oh my gosh, we got to go to the Caribbean because it's so. For us, we actually, because we have family in Europe, when we were traveling back and forth to go see them, they were like, well, don't come that time of year. I mean, even the fountains are closed. That was their expression, is like, because when it gets cold in winter, they shut the fountains off and cover them up for the winter so they don't get damaged. And we're like, we don't mind. It's because it was different. It was a contrast. And it kind of brings a little bit to what, again, I'm not trying to be like, ooh, super smarty about this, but how we're changing our interest in travel is rather profound. And we haven't really talked about how that impact of, okay, I don't have to be living next to where I work as much anymore, obviously because of housing prices where I live in Florida and so forth, and other high destination places are like, I'm just going to live there. That's where I always wanted to live, like you did. It's like, hey, look, I always wanted to travel to green and warm. I now live in green and warm. Lucky me.
Yes, and may I bring up another point? I can now go for an extended period of time. I can, if I haven't decided exactly where I'm going to spend, my, this later years, I should say middle years, whatever it is that it is for me.
Hey, you're only
Uh,
29. You got a
I
long way to
can,
go.
but I'm going to be 60 in December, so I'm going to go straight from 29 to 60. I don't know how that happened. But I can go and rent a condo for a month in,
Mhm.
St. Augustine, and see what I think of it,
Right.
and really get to know the place on a different level. I can have that deep travel experience driving, and I can just have my life, still do work during the day, go out for dinner, have activities, maybe give myself a little more leisure time than I would at home. But
Hmm.
that could be my travel, just
Yes.
renting a co-op, or a house with a
Hmm.
pool, which I don't have over here. I can rent a house with a pool. I'm actually renting a house in a pool in St. Augustine. That's why I thought.
See, that's why
But
it was.
I'm just
See, the
going for a few
pretty good detail there that you're talking about the aspirational travel when you're like already talking specifics. And it's like,
I just want
okay.
you to know, but I'm not renting it for a month. I'm going for 3 days, and then I'll see from there. But listen to this. I picked a house with a pool over a hotel because I've had my dog for 3 years now, and I don't know if he can swim. So we're going to
What?
find out if the guy's a swimmer, and I can't put him in the pool of a hotel. And that's
Yeah,
one thing that those houses have. They give you a little bit of freedom
yeah, they do.
sometimes.
And I think like for me being who I do and what I've done, I've stayed at places for the very same reasons that you're talking about. I wanted, well, we decided last year in August that we were just okay, want to go do something, but we want to do it safely, obviously at that time, particularly and so forth. And so we picked a VRBO that had the criteria, which was it was isolated, it wasn't around other people. Um, they VRBOs and stuff had these, especially Airbnb, had these massive penalty things, which is their under their demise really, in that sense, because unrefundable and everything else is like, really, that's a pretty heavy commitment choice, even given that maybe there was a hurricane or something. Technically, it's still non-refundable, and you're sitting there
Mhm,
going, really? If the place got
mhm,
wiped off the map, I still have to pay for if I was to go there, even though there's nothing to go to. That's the
mhm.
rule. and it's really, I mean, I'm sure you can mitigate it and so forth, but you're on the downside of that conversation going into it. You're not there with the ability to do it. You're there to convince people to change the policy. Anyway, um, and we did that with the idea of, well, we wanted our dog with us. We didn't want at that time to be engaging with the people, because when you have a cute dog, as you know, everybody wants to pet the puppy. And by the way, our dog, not a water dog. He'll sit on top of my head when I try to put him in the pool when we lived in Texas. It's like, no, he is not. He is a sunshine puppy, belly in the air puppy, yes, but not a water puppy at all. But yeah, but I think what this is providing is that from a hotelier's point of view, or just in hospitality, um, the fact that we have to consider our messaging more and more diverse. You know, what you just talked about, going to St. Augustine for what your purposes were, perhaps there could have been a hotel. Now, I mean, I don't think they could do the puppy in the pool thing, but you know, would you give that up if they went over and said, "Look, we would love you to experience our town, so that you might decide you might want to come here more often and longer. And here is what we can provide," and put something together with somebody that
Yeah.
says, "We'll be happy to. Here's links to local real estate agents that we feel are great people to introduce our city. Uh, Here's information about living, the regions, the areas," because hotels really don't talk about that in their content at all. I mean, I don't. I don't talk about, this is a residential area next to us. It's like, no, I'm really thinking you just want to stay with me and do whatever you're going to do and then leave. I don't think you're really interested in the fact that it's a wonderful school zone. Just thinking. So maybe in some strange way we have to adapt our conversation to include more things that we wouldn't normally have done, rather than just, oh, super amazing restaurant right around the corner, or hey, we're right by the beach. It's more like, also, we're also next to some really neat communities that, if you're interested in getting a feel for the place, we'd be happy to introduce you to the people that would be able to be great ambassadors to that. Maybe, don't know, I don't
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. Absolutely. You know, if you went, if you look at Dell Web Properties, for example, which of course they want you to buy 55 plus. They have all kinds of activities and everything. And they say, come stay for free for a 3-day weekend. We will introduce you to some other people like yourself who are already living there, maybe somebody who came from where you come from, and they'll be your friends to go and see the activities and get a feel for the lifestyle there, so you can make a good shopping decision on your new home, which I think is such a clever idea. And we always should be looking, as you said, at what other people are doing and bring that
Mhm.
idea back to hospitality. I like the idea of the hotels that are saying, come and stay for the weekend and take a dog from our humane society
Mm,
and have that dog stay with you for the weekend. And a lot of people are doing it. They're coming to the hotel especially to have that experience of being able to take care of a dog, and they're taking that dog home very often for a very affordable adoption fee. There was a hotel talking about the fact that they were doing that for the military people who were staying there for long periods of time. And it just made it feel so much more like home to have a dog with them. And very often they took them home.
true. I see people keep
Mhm.
bumping in and out of attendance. I'm wondering if there's a tech issue on some of our platform, because I keep seeing,
Oh,
sorry, they keep popping it out. If it's a tech issue, Alexa, same thing. I keep seeing go, dook, 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 dook. I'm like, okay.
mhm.
I only say that because for some reason I am the magnet for tech glitches these past couple of days, and platforms that I'm using, all of a sudden it's like they're having tech issues, and then a day later I find out that we had a tech issue. We're really sorry. And I'm like, wow, it just seems really ironic that I've had such major tech issues these past couple of days. But no, tomorrow I don't know, because Lex was doing the same thing where he was popping in. I'm like, usually that means something's not quite working. Um, yeah, there's a couple of platforms I had, and I'm really, by the way, just on a personal grievance note, really pissed at Apple and Google right now, because I had bought one of the new Apple M1 chip computers. To this day, and it's supposed to have been fixed by now, you can't access Google Drives the way you normally, like Dropbox and stuff on the computer. They don't talk to each other. Google and Apple are just being really spoiled little brats, or big brats, monster brats, and they're not working this thing out. So my new spiffy laptop that I've been wanting to use since I bought it at the end of last year is still partially being used at home compared to where I really wanted it, was here working on it. and I'm using my old one that was to replace it now, well past this prime, because pretty much every fourth or fifth day it says error, we died. We're gonna come back to life tomorrow. So no, thanks, Melissa. Yeah, no, you don't seem to be one popping in and out. It really was just Tamara and Lex that were going in and out, and I was just wondering whether it was a tech issue or not. And also, just remember, since you can see we have plenty of spaces to come up here, and you know that we do the clubhouse thing during the week anyway. We welcome anybody who wants to come join the conversation. You're more than welcome. Just let us know in the chat if you want to pop in. As you can see, it's our typical, hey, what do you want to talk about? So all fine for it. But I do think from a core note of hospitality marketing, and from just talking with you, Adele, thank you. I've gotten to think that some of these hotels, because a lot of these hotels are looking at ways to redefine making business, doing business. Now, I know that some hotels are already too busy and they're actually having to throttle or govern how many people can come in the door. Got that. I understand. But I know that's not everybody. And then there's certain hotels that are in locations that are not experiencing that and are unlikely to experience in the near future simply for what they were built for, just as a interim destination, or they're in downtown cores and they don't have something. So what we're talking about possibly being a variance to what they're doing is a very viable consideration, whether it is featuring relocation people or not. The fact that you have to think outside that term and say, I'm not just selling rooms and rate, I'm selling the fact that I'm here and what can I provide a service that people are going to buy what I have to sell, which could be those things, even it comes down to the small meeting spaces we talked about before, just that variation of thought, I guess.
People keep talking about resiliency, but you're not snapping back to what it used to be. You're revitalizing yourself in a new direction. Almost everybody is going to have to change the basic principles, maybe not the basic principles, but their market has changed, their clients' needs have changed, their guests' needs have changed, their expectations have changed, and we're just going to have to learn how to think about not going back to exactly the way things were before and try to come back better and stronger. And I definitely think that alignment on a goal is the way to do it, and then think, okay, now that I know my goal, how am I going to get there? Hi, Melissa.
Hello.
This is Warm Fuzzy Hour. Welcome, brought to you by
I like
Warm Fuzzy Pillows. No, actually, I don't want to even make a pillow commercial. I don't like that dude at all, so I'm not even going to make a pillow commercial. I'm leaving that guy out of it, Mr. whatever his name is. But anywho, Melissa, we're just kind of talking about, as you can see, we're just kind of like, hey, put a stick in this hand. Variations on marketing ideas. Just that we're talking about the relocation people and so forth. It's just a rethink. It's and it sounds grand, really minor and small, and it's certainly not a silver bullet. But what would you like to talk about?
So, a couple of weeks ago on one of the Ed and Stewart shows at that ridiculous hour of the morning.
Right. That really crazy, stupid 8 a.m. thing. Yeah.
I was sitting in on one of those and we were talking about, the whole working remote from a hotel, that whole concept of being able to do that now more than ever. And people may be wanting to do that now more than ever. And I said, there's one thing aside from money, which I maybe need to ask for a raise so that I could do this in my life. But let's just assume money was no object and I really could travel the world and go to anywhere and work. One thing holding me back as a true person who, when I'm working, I'm not at the pool working. I need to work.
Right.
I need a real office setup. Like, I need an external monitor. I need a keyboard. I can't function. I literally cannot do my job with just my laptop. It is like working with one hand tied behind my back. And I assume a lot of people at this point in time are used to having this type of technology when they're working, again, unless they're sitting by the pool with a margarita in their hand and doing whatever it is that they do there.
Wait. Whoa. Are we bashing margarita poolsides? What?
No.
No. Yeah, I can't do
that's
that.
afternoon lunch. Come on. What?
I'm really comfortable with just using my laptop, but maybe I just haven't really explored the whole get an extra monitor and a keyboard
Oh,
situation.
they're not
Maybe
expensive. Yeah,
maybe
I
it
actually
would.
bought one for Renee at home because not that margaritas around the pool are a bad thing. Okay, let's make that baseline. Okay, just saying. But should one desire not to walk the brief 10-minute walk to one's office and wish to sit in one's living room and do the same work because someone didn't have any meetings that day, the extra little monitor plugged into the side is because you're right, multi-monitor thing, yeah, okay, and being having your own everything laid out in such a way that when you leave it, it doesn't get touched again or whatever. Yes. Um, Now here's the geek in me. Okay, so I have the VR headsets. They just did an upgrade, which is so cool. Before you already have what was called virtual desktop, which was pretty cool. You put the goggles on and you could have like Minority Report, all these screens, and you could swipe and touch. Okay, very cool, totally geeky. I know. They just upgraded it where you have this virtual where you can see your hands virtually in the world, but to type, you're not feeling or touching anything, and so it doesn't work for me. It's just I ended up just making the little triggers hit the little letters, and that's like finger poking typing, and it doesn't really do well either. And even though you can talk to it, it's still. Well, they just updated it, so there's cameras on the side of this headset that you can see the world around you. That's for safety. Like if you walk out of your zone, poof, all of a sudden you see where you are, so you don't run into walls or stuff. Well, they've used the cameras to see your hands, your real hands, in the virtual world. Now you can alter how much virtual world you see, so you can see most of your outside world, but you see these screens in front of you in your office. If you wanted to, you just see the screens in your office and you can see your real hands, and they connected it to a wireless keyboard. So you can see the real keyboard. Okay. No, I'm not making this up. This is right now. You can go buy these goggles for $299 and download the software for $19 and boom, there you go. And the keyboard is a real keyboard, touchy keyboard, touchpad on it. You see your real hands in your virtual world. So you could be sitting on a cliffside in Maui, okay, with, looking at the beautiful vista with your little screens up, 4, 6, you can actually put 6 screens up. Not that you need, well, maybe you do. 6 screens up, and you have your real keyboard, real hands, and you can do your real mouse, and you can work. No more monitors.
Wow.
Which
My
is just
mind is blown right now.
totally cool. I'm sorry. It's just,
Imagine.
it's
I
like a
can't
geeky
even
fest happy day
imagine
thing for me.
this.
Yeah. It's just, so you sit, and it's like Minority Report. It truly is. Because it's also, you have virtual hands in the world too. So you can touch things on screens, swipe them, you can talk to it, say, new browser open, whatever it is, and it'll pop it open and stuff like this. And then in the virtual world, you're in the virtual world, or you can slide the gradient down for opacity and you can just see your real world, but you still see the screens in front of you.
Wow.
I know, it's just cool. Where's Ed and Stuart so they can bash it? Where are they?
Isn't it amazing how often we talk about a Minority Report, and that movie
Yes.
is so old and it's still such an icon of technology.
It really was.
It's a
Yeah.
great movie.
It represented a lot of the future interpretation of technology. I thought those screens being one of them, eye recognition, that is more to reality in more ways than the movie was. Not from the eye scanning per se, but the location-based triggering stuff.
Yes.
You know better than anything now. Back then it was like, "Ooh, that's really weird." It's norm for us now.
Yeah.
And it would get to the point if it wasn't spooky. As soon as they get what's called, and they actually, there was somebody in tech that said this, when they can get omnidirectional speakers, you'll see more Minority Report engagements where you walk into a store and it says, "Welcome, Lauren," because they don't want it to be heard by everybody. They want only you to hear what they're saying. So until they get that monocular singular direction audio capability, that's really one of their trigger points. But yeah, just cool stuff.
Yeah.
But I think in the Clubhouse conversations we kind of threw, Lex, it's easy about it's Oculus 2. Buy it. Have fun.
I spend so many hours on tech support with Google and Microsoft over the past week. It made me cry. I mean, almost made me cry. It can be so frustrating. Technology is so amazing, so liberating, so wonderful. But if you can't get your calendar to work straight,
Oh.
you know,
Right.
Okay, I have one satisfying moment, Adele, just so you know. So, being the geek that I am, and I was whining about Google and Apple not working together in the Google Drive. So I go, and whatever geek does goes to the chat rooms and Reddit and everything else and read what everybody else is having the same problem of to see what they're doing. I exhausted all of them to the level of frustration that a lot of other tech people were going over and saying it just doesn't freaking work. Okay, so I finally went over and contacted my Apple people, which sent me over to somebody from another country, and they're trying to be very polite, and they have their script, which we've all had, where it's like, "Hi, welcome. We're terribly sorry for your inconvenience." Sorry. And I said, "Okay, before we begin, this is what I've done." And they kept trying to interrupt me with, "We're terribly," and just, no, just listen for a second. And I just shotgunned everything I did, all the way down to restarting and reconfiguring my coding and all this other stuff. Thank you very much. Hold, please. It's like, yeah, we're not going to talk to him. It was, and they got me to, and literally I was told the same thing. Until somebody on either side of the fence blinks and changes something that they're both responsible for, not one side can fix the problem. Apple can't fix Google's issue. Google is having it doesn't want to fix Apple's issue. So they're literally just staring at each other from across the field, waiting for the other person to blink. And I'm sitting there going, that's just really pissing off everybody. We can't use this thing because it's limiting, as I said, using the software. Because for me now, I keep everything business-wise on Google Drive. That way I'm not keeping local storage, and it's also I can secure it for my clients and all this other kind of stuff, encrypt it. So now every time I need to use a file for a client, I got to manually download it to the laptop to use it in what I'm using it for, and then manually upload it via the browser. I mean, I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to last with me very long. So I'm stuck using the old laptop that seems to be working because it's only an M1 computer chip issue, not an Apple software platform issue. It's how Google plays with M1, because M1 is a much faster chip. It's amazing the difference in tech on that, but that's a whole other thing. So anyway, we got some geek stuff today. I won't mention the gaming of the stuff because virtual gaming is a whole, but you can also, and this is where I have to kind of wrestle with my wife on this, is I introduced her to two things. One, I've started exercising more, and there's these exercises on these headsets that are amazing because the instructor's right in front of you in virtual world. Ta-da! Hi, follow me, do what I do. And then they do these things where, I don't know if you've ever heard of a game called Beat Saber. You have two. Okay, Stuart would love this. You have a lightsaber in each hand, basically.
Oh God.
Okay. So right there, it's a Stuart game. Just saying it's a Stuart thing. But what it does is the music, you're standing on like a road, okay? And these boxes are flying towards you that have arrows as to which way you're supposed to strike them, but they're at the tempo of the music. So you're so you're like almost playing air drums but you're exercising. Very cool concept. Put the two together. I'm listening to some tunes I like. I get to beat things up with lightsabers, and I'm exercising. To me, it's a win-win-win on all level. So anyway, they do this, but this new program called I do the exercises with it. I was on the surface of Mars. They took virtual. They took the pictures of Mars, the 360 pictures of Mars, and put you there. So I'm on Mars doing these games, and you have to go under the triangles and do all these exercises. Well, my wife, I introduced her to it. So now we wrestle as to who gets to do it first. That was one. Then we have these you can travel anywhere in the world on Google Maps. You know what the Google Maps? Well, there's high resolution of those. So you can go anywhere in the world by just saying, this is where I want to go. And now you're standing in the middle of the street or standing on the top of the mountain or wherever. You're just there. And you're looking around like, oh, so this is what it looks like.
Oh, my goodness.
So, you can go to Machu Picchu and stuff. They send it up to the International Space Station. Time Magazine is so you send it up there at 3D 360. For 2 years, it was on the space station. My wife had to flip the goggles off because she got claustrophobic, because you're literally in the space station. You're there having breakfast with the astronauts, and you're in the blister looking down on Earth. You're on a spacewalk with them, a real spacewalk where you're like, holy shit. The other thing I wrestle with her is you can watch Netflix on this. Anywhere that, you can be on the surface of the moon watching a big screen in front of you watching Netflix. And of course, you can do it in 3D too, and all this. So now, with that, when there's conflict as to what each of us want to see, guess who goes for the goggles? I'm like, everything. And of course, when I go to say, well, let's get us a pair of, no, we only have one. It's fine. It's like, no, but you don't let me anyway. Yeah, and it's an argument you never win with a wife. It's like, no, I can't buy more tech. It's just you have to share the tech. But it is amazing stuff, and from a travel perspective, it truly is. I mean, there's people, there's a whole community, there's a whole YouTube that people don't know about, which is VR YouTube, and it's virtual reality tube. There's a guy that runs around Florida that will take a 360 camera like I have, plop it on a stand, a little monopod on a beach, and let it run for 30 minutes, and you can just be on that beach for 30 minutes, just wherever the camera. And just if I want to go see Sanibel Island, he has a 30-minute video where you're just standing on the beach looking around. People walk by the camera or looking at it, or boats are go across, but you're on the beach, sound, everything around, but heat and smell.
All right, let's talk about that for just a minute. I'm going to bring this right back to hotel marketing. Watch.
Yay! Thank you.
Not VR related, but webcam beach cams are the bomb.
For traffic? Oh, yeah.
It is amazing how many people just want to sit and look at the beach from their home computer or phone while they're doing whatever it is that they're doing. And I will say this, so we have obviously we have a lot of clients in Myrtle Beach, but also other beach destinations with a lot who have invested in these webcams, and they're just, you can spin them around the outside of the hotel and they're live shots of Myrtle Beach or whatever. And back in the day, so I'm going back 3 or 4 years ago, you would just see this traffic coming in and out, and it had a really high bounce rate. And obviously they were just there to look at the beach. But just before COVID hit, we really started seeing revenue coming in from people landing on these webcam pages. Like if you look at the lifetime value of these consumers, I'm not talking millions of dollars, but it's more money than they would have gotten had they not had that, dreaming phase. I want to be at the beach to look at while they're, considering their options. There was real money coming in from people looking at these webcams.
Yep.
Amazing. How much does it cost to set up something like that?
That is out of my pay grade. I'm not sure, but I feel like it can't be.
It's not actually. I set up webcams for a hotel. Actually, I small claim to fame. Some of the more popular webcams in Key West was from our hotels that I used to run down there. That they ended up having to go over in the city one to do it themselves. We ran it off of, at the time, the Westin downtown for Mallory Square. People loved watching Mallory Square for Sunset Fest. Since we had the hotel right adjacent to it, I'm like, hey, let's put a webcam up. At the time, cameras were expensive. This goes back a ways, 2005, 2006, and they were about $1,000. Now you can get a really decent all-weather camera for $250, $300. And what I do recommend is you do a separate internet line for them. You don't want it to bleed because the bandwidth traffic on it, when it hit, lesson learned from that one way back. You want your own feed for it. But if you get a nice gig feed for it, it's well worth the expense. And what I also started doing was lower third banners on the bottom of the cameras for people to, for more information and so forth. Before Bitly's, now they have Bitly's. It makes it even easier, or URL shorteners. You can make, and so you just change the message up. We have people wanting to buy it. That was the other thing too. This is another one. News agencies in your market love being able to have tapping into your camera. Yes. Sometimes if you're in a really pristine location, they want to put their own camera. We had Jupiter Beach Resort. We had the 2 TV stations actually had their cameras, their feeds, their power, their cable, everything to their cameras on our roofs because the view was stellar looking down the beach. And we were always featured every night at 6 p.m. from the Jupiter Beach Resort. Here's the Jupiter Beach, and that went a long ways, getting some pretty cool traffic. Like, wow, that must be the place to be because look, there's the beach, so.
And I will tell you, when weather happens, traffic goes through like hurricane. Watch out, your network's going down.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
People are fascinated with weather. They want to see what is going on.
Yeah, and they stay. You're right. They stay on it. The ski slope cameras too. We did them in Whistler. People love those, and now that's when you start getting some expensive. Okay, that whole thing I just said about cameras. Even now, self-remote cameras, the pan and tilts, they're still in the $1,000+ range to have, and then the software for you to remotely have people use them. Like you have a minute that you get to run. You're in a queue. I don't know whether you've ever seen that, but these cameras are pan and tilts and zooms that the remote watcher can control, and they have a time zone that they can do it right. And there's a queue of people that are waiting to do that because they want to look at certain things. And you know, we in Whistler was fun because when we had downtimes, we would make some of the crew ski down the slope because we knew people were really just because it's one thing to look at the slope and you can't really see the powder or what the snow's like, but you can see the weather. But if they could see somebody ski, they could get a sense of what the snow was looking like. And so we would shoot down some, and of course they never, oh yeah, really? I'm getting paid to ski? Sure. Hey, slap some skis. I'm going, you know? And so they had no problems with that. And it was always good in that sense that we would show people what the powder looked like that day by having somebody slow down during the peak traffic. So yeah, you don't think it's fun. The camera, I'm a geek with the cameras. I just talked to a guy in Britain. I'm talking to him about, he does voiceovers, amazing voice. Oh my God, you want him to read the phone book to you. Because he has that, you know, he's an older gentleman. He has that very distinct British accent, kind of like the royal family accent thing going, you know, proper English, not the Cockney kind of stuff. Where's Ben and Tris when you need them? Yeah, I talked to him a week ago. Other than massive apologies, they've been going through some pretty heavy lockdowns over there, and also their business is going vertical. I mean,
good for them.
What they're telling me they're engaged with and what they're being I mean, they brought back 9 people already. Well, they brought 9 people they used to work with in other venues to their team.
Wow.
Oh.
So they are scaling like, I mean, they got some amazing things going on. We're like, dang. But anyway, so this guy, we were talking about the fact this happened in the Good News Network. Okay. I did this for fun. When I was over in the Netherlands, I did my 360 camera at my mother-in-law's house where she sits on the couch. And I did it for about 30 minutes because I was inspired by this guy that was running around with cameras. I'm like, just as if you're sitting in her living room for no, you know what I mean? And we started looking at it and we enjoyed it for just our own reason afterwards. Because I did thinking that, you know, it would be kind of fun to just be able to, and it's just fun to just sit, you know, no, TV wasn't on or anything, just sunlight through the window, sitting in the room. And, you know, you don't get the smells of anything, but you feel like you're there. So in the Good News Network, in the nursing homes, they introduced some VR headsets where they put them on people that were unable to travel anymore or to do anything. Really, they were bedridden. And they allowed them to look around and be anywhere in the world that they wanted to go. And then it hit me, and I talked to this guy about it, and he actually did something like this. Family history, tracing what your family is, the stories you get from people. He was doing interviews of older people, and he got more information from them than their family, because some people generationally don't talk about their history, and they don't talk about it to their family, but they'll talk about it to somebody else if you ask the right questions. And with this voice, who wouldn't be like, sure, I'll tell you anything you want. The dude has an amazing voice. And so he got all this great information that was shared with the family. So we started talking about how cool would it be if you put one of these cameras in and you created this dialogue with this family member, talking about their lives and remembrance, but with the help of the family. Like, we don't know what this picture is, but he may be or she may be. Can you bring this into your questions? Can you talk to them about what did they do when they were during the war, or what did they do when this happened? And, you know, the family kind of led where you wanted to have some of these questions. He's done that and done interviews with that. And so I was like, well, how cool would it be if in a family reunion, you put one of these cameras in the chair where they usually sat, and had the family interact with the camera as if that camera was that person, and you saved that and then gave that to them as a gift in return, where that person could go over and put the headset on and actually attend a family reunion where the great grandkids are running around or the family's around you as if you were sitting there. To me, that's a magic of technology if you can do those things, because that's creating some pretty cool stuff, I think. So anyway.
That is amazing.
But the technology is now, we can do those things now, which makes it so neat. So that's the cool part. So that's my contrast to the Google Apple pain in my butt thing. So that's my balance act for that. But anyways, all right, back to marketing, back to hospitality.
I attended a session with Google for the Hawaii HSMA chapter did. And I know that Dean mentioned it before in our email chat before. But one of the things that I think we've said a lot just in the group before is the first thing they said was embrace agility over certainty. You know, just stop trying to think that things are going to stay put in any certain way. Just embrace the flow and and focus on your ability to adapt and change.
Isn't that life in general? Shouldn't
Right.
we just adapt that for our lives?
It should
Right.
be. But you know what, Melissa? I was talking to somebody who was setting up a new business, and they were talking about how focused on the customer satisfaction and the employee satisfaction was going to be, and these are all the things that they put in place. And I said, oh, okay, so what do you have set up for how you will be, because innovative was like every other word. And I said, so what is your plan for how you're going to innovate after you open? Like, no, this is the way, and that's how we're going to do it. And we're sticking to it because we know that this is the best way. Guess what? I mean, what business opens up and right from the get-go, they hit it 100% and they don't need to modify anything or adapt anything? Can you imagine? You have to build that process of listening to feedback, or taking in observations, talking to your team, and modifying, don't you think? When actually I was watching CNBC the other day, and I know the letters of the company are XM, which stands for Experience Matters, but I can't remember the name of the company, Qual something. Anyway, the lead guy there said he was quoting something or paraphrasing something that the CEO of UPS said was, in all of her years of experience in business, she found that the number one most important thing is to listen to your customers and your employees and adapt. So that adaptation, agility, flexibility, I think that has to be the guiding light from here on out, don't you think?
Listening to your customers, what a novel idea.
Well, that's a brilliant idea.
But you know what? I mean, all the time I see that there are review responses, guest review responses. Of course, I'm going to talk about that. Guest review responses that are said that they're from the owner. They say that they're from the general manager. But you can see it's just a cut and paste template, right? Because it's the same thing for 15 messages in a row. Even each time saying, that's not the norm, that's not the norm, that's not the norm, that's not the norm. Or, I'm so glad that you enjoyed A, B, and C. I'm so glad that you enjoyed A, B, and C. I'm so glad that you enjoyed A, B, and C. And you know what? It would be better if they didn't even do it. Stop even marking that check. If you're just don't even answer, better than saying, look how responsible I am. I'm assigning the night auditor to say that they're me, right? As if I heard you. You're only pretending that you're listening, but you're not actually listening.
That's actually what I was going to ask you. At what point is it better to just not respond than to copy paste? That looks so fake, and consumers know it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that it's the same response over and over.
It doesn't. You know what? You have to respond to positive and negative, I would say, on Expedia and Booking.com, because it's gonna impact your ranking in a certain way. They just want to see the action of putting in a response. And in this case, just say, thanks so much for being our guest. Or that's all. Better to just say that over and over again. Then it's obvious you're not pretending that
Right.
you're actually making a genuine thing. It's just thank you. And that's it. It's okay to do that for a positive. For a negative, you should never, ever, ever have a template response, because you have to have actually made the internal response in your organization before you've attempted to make an external response. The internal response is, is that so? What can I do to prevent that? I know why we did it that way, but I see that you didn't take it as well as we hoped. So what can I do to change the system so that the next person doesn't feel that way, but I still am doing what I need to do to protect the company, but I'm not over protecting the company so much that I'm hurting the guests. For example, oh yeah, sorry, go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, you bring up a point that we've been doing, and what I used to do, and that we're doing with a couple of clients, but I add a buffer to it where we don't push the GM conversation first. I completely agree with your dialogue between positive and negatives. That negatives should never, first off, they should always be genuine for both sides, but the negatives should have a higher addressed value to it. But we've put in where we respond from a departmental perspective so that we have that extra oomph if it escalates where the GM needs to now step in, or the director of ops, or somebody of a high enough level that the guest feels like they're getting the authoritative position on it. So most of our dialogues are represented from the sales team, the front desk team, the service team, variations of names, whatever, what is comfortable for the property, where they're like both positive and negatives. We both hit both of them. Negatives are like, because some of the negatives, and this goes to some of our bot discussion from earlier the week, are logistic things, like my billing was off, or I had a service issue. And rather than throw the kitchen sink of the GM coming back, oh my gosh, this was this, we did this, or whatever, it was more of the service manager getting back to them, so that if they could resolve it from a simple dialogue of, we're sincere, if we always approach it with, obviously it's an issue, it's your issue, so it becomes our issue, we're going to take on this, whatever, that they feel like it's being addressed. Should they feel that isn't satisfactory, that they didn't talk to the big enough person to make their point, at least we can pull that card out at the end going, okay, great. Well, here's the GM to answer your questions. But we don't just throw the GM first. And it's helped us mitigate where we're not looking so fake. I mean, that's probably why I'm bringing it up, is that whole generic box can kind of responses. We're literally coming off as department type people. And then for the GM to step in is really a stroke of the pen. Like, hey, this is us, so.
Okay, so if that works, and that's fixing the problem, not just resolving that instance for that one person, then
Right.
that's great. But here's a viewpoint from someone who had the #1 hotel in the world on TripAdvisor in 2017, and the number. Often several of the hotels would be on the top 25 for TripAdvisor year after year on the Traveler's Choice Awards. So instead, consider this approach. If it works, if it's taking too much time or drain to answer positives, you don't really need to answer the positives, because the positives spoke for themselves. And when somebody's reading reviews, they are looking to hear what other travelers had to say. They're not really looking to hear from you. You're missing an opportunity to sell your hotel a little bit, because you can throw in, oh, I'm so glad you enjoyed the restaurant. Guess what? We're opening the outdoors, so when you come back again, it's going to be even better, blah, 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 whatever, something like that, or changing the menu, or next time you come back, there'll be a vegetarian menu. I'm always talking about that, but getting back to what you were saying, leaving it to the department head limits the creative juice on how to innovate to keep that review or that response, or I should say, whatever that friction point was, you're limiting your creativity. when you look at it from a more full-rounded approach, when you have someone from the front desk and housekeeping and the manager and somebody from marketing, and I say always have somebody from sales and marketing on the team that is looking at how that response is going to be answered, because you're not just responding to that one thing. You're taking the spark of an idea, or you're looking for a spark of an idea of how you can make things better forever and always for all your future guests. And the marketing department, they know how that impacts maybe what they put in the pre-stay email, what did they put on the booking engine, the pictures, how they would address that in pictures, how they would address what's on the website, or how they phrase something in an ad that maybe gave a false impression that it was going to be this way, but it's really going to be that way. There are things that the sales and marketing understand on that side, that sometimes it's just a communication issue and they can solve that. The front desk can't solve that, and they won't even think in those terms. So they can't come up with that solution without including that sales and marketing person at the table. And the general manager can also not singularly on their own think of a solution on everything himself or herself. They need the front office person that was involved, or the reservations person that was involved. They needed somebody in the sales. You should have somebody who's in higher management and really knows the whole operation really well, but you should also have someone young and new to the organization, but pretty savvy, who's creative. And because they'll say, well, but why do we do it like that? Well, we've always been doing it like that, so we always do it like that. Don't you think we should always do it? No. Why did you ever do it like that? Wouldn't you do it like that? Sometimes they can cut through the history of something that we did pre computers, and just it's not needed anymore.
Okay, I am going to tussle with you a little bit.
Okay, I love it.
I hear on one side the need for us to be adaptive and change, what that really translates to do. You're talking from a very traditional bandwidth capable program on how to respond. I totally agree with you that there are times that resources need to be collaborated with, so that the messaging, first off, brand quality. Being the tech geeky head I have, there are technologies now that allow for authorization gates, that something doesn't go out until it gets approved. So there's technologies that help with the fact that we don't have the random "I'm pissed this evening" response from a night auditor that happens to be asked to do something in particular, that it has to hit a gate to make sure, like, oh, hell no, we're not going to say that, and we're going to do this, and we're not going to use that kind of, with that picture or whatever it is. I do say, however, and this is from a scale of size and volume, and I have a client in particular, in New York, actually in particular, if the GM responded at the level that you're talking about for good and bad, they think that the GM literally sat all day and did nothing but this, because the flow was a torrent. It was thousands of comments, reviews, conversations per week. Let's just be general.
Yeah.
There's no way, without it looking fake, that the GM could answer those things. Just can't. And so this is where it was born from, to be honest with you. Well, actually I did before, but then I brought it into this, is that by having a lot of the content, and I think Tamar, you pointed out, sometimes it is accounting questions, or it is a billing issue and they're complaining about the billing issue. Okay, so it is a legitimate review. Guys, your billing issues are screwed. I can't get a receipt, or I can't get this, or I can't get my refund. There's a logistics issue to it. Having the front line of people that are departmentally responsible for that type of engagement is a good first step for a lot of what I feel is to be strong, authoritative, giving them the power, because you brought this up before, Adele, that give them power. Give them the power to make these things happen, okay? With the caveat, from a management's perspective, the oversight of authorization and brand consistency. You don't want renegade conversations, you don't want renegade perspectives, and you don't want inconsistent voice responses. You don't want, well, that's somebody different that answered that one, because that's not what that person said, and it's supposed to be the same company. So I say, yes, I completely agree. The success what you've had, profound, and all that works. But I think also from an adaptive point of view, the bandwidth isn't there in the hotels to have a rally about how we're going to review. I truly believe in the perfect world, everyone should get together once a week and see what everybody's talking about them. Absolutely. You've mentioned that many times. That's probably one of the most strongest things you can ever do is like, let's see what people really think about what we're doing here, and read the reviews to the team, or have the team read the reviews. But right now, when I deal with properties, they are totally, I mean, look, dude, I'm pulling 80, 90-hour shifts this week. I don't have time to marketing. Are you freaking kidding me? As a matter of fact, shut the damn thing off. I can't handle what, that's what I'm dealing with is from these property people. If you start talking to them about sprinkling sunshine, they're going to go over and they're going to tell you what to do with the sprinkling sunshine component. But I mean, and I'm not trying to be mean about it. Just they're just so back in your face, like, you are so out of touch with my world right now, is basically what they're telling me. You have no concept. I'm worried about plunging a toilet here in about 2 seconds, and a housekeeper that didn't show, and I got 5 rooms to turn and burn before they show up today. And that's already selling at 50% of my occupancy because such and such decided to get a test, or such and such didn't get a test and they got COVID, or whatever it is. That's my world. Don't talk to me about how much money I need to spend on a marketing campaign, because, to be honest with you, bud, I don't have any interest.
But I'm not talking about a marketing campaign. And
But
not
the idea
about
of the review process that you're talking about is as unrealistic, is probably my point. I'm just saying that that's in their sense right now, that collaboration, cooperation, centralization just doesn't work in a lot of their environments right now.
But you know what? And I, I understand that. I totally understand that. And if that's the way it is, if you have to cut something, cut responding to the positive reviews. Certainly on TripAdvisor, that where your response on a positive review does not contribute to your ranking. It does on Expedia. So just be straight about it and just say, thanks so much for being our guest. That, we hope to see you again. Just leave it at that. Nobody's expecting more. But if you're going to pretend that it's a sincere response, don't do it. So then now you don't have to worry about that, and you only have to worry about the complaints. And the reason that I say it's worth the time, and you don't have to physically be in the same room. You just get on a call, say, hey, let's have a quick chat about this. This is what happened. What do you guys think? It is, I think that there might be a nugget of truth to this. How can we approach it better? You tell me how we're going to do it moving forward. And the GM, when I say the GM should be in that conversation, because they should know how their operation is going. They should know what people are saying about them. They should not be blindfolded because nobody's letting the GM actually see what's going on. And then let that department head say, hey, this is what I think, and let the marketing person in on the conversation, because they may contribute something to it. They, in a completely different way than anybody else will see it, and know that there's something more that needs to be added, or that it needs to be said a certain way. And then once you've decided what you're going to do internally, the GM doesn't have to write it. Whoever is capable of writing a compassionate, literate response that will attract customers to your door. Unless you don't care if you have more customers coming to your door, unless you don't care if that negative review is going to, keep other people from coming back.
It doesn't. Please listen. I agree with everything you're saying. I'm being an advocate on something. I'm pulling an Ed today in some senses with it, I guess. But in all honesty, and I mean this, and from my example of the marketing idea, I literally have properties that tell me to shut up. I have no interest in marketing right now. I don't want more people. They are burnt, fatigued, dead. They don't really, at this point, they realize, and what you're doing is you're being like UPS. They don't have dirty trucks because they made it important not to have dirty trucks. And I know it sounds like what the hell is he talking about?
It's true.
When they're running around like fiends, and they got a trailer attached to the back, and it's Christmas season, and they don't have enough people to actually throw enough boxes on enough doorsteps because they're so overwhelmed with demand, like they were this past Christmas. The last thing they'd be worried about is keeping their trucks clean. UPS said, no, I'm sorry. We will not drive around somebody's neighborhood with a crappy ass looking truck that's all mudded out and dirtied out. We will always have the shiny, clean trucks because that's what we are. That's you, Adele. That's you saying, hey, out of all this stuff, we have to be listening to our guests. We have to be listening to what we're doing right or wrong. It's important for us because even though you're knee deep into the hoopla right now, we need to make sure that we're doing good business through that whole entire process. My reality is that we have a lot of people that are one hairbreadth away from going, yeah, I'm out of here. They're done. And we've already seen people in the industry that have already made that choice going, you know what, this ain't worth it. And then we get a lot of other people going, I ain't going back to it until I have a reason to make the money that they're barely offering me to go do this. I'm going to look for other opportunities. And that's the crisis we're in. Your points are well-founded. Truly, everything you're saying, if we don't have our good sensitivity to our guests, if we don't do all these things, we don't have those things in place. The logistics is what I'm contesting is at this point, a reevaluation of how we address what we're doing. And you made a very good point. Positives don't influence what you need to worry about as much as addressing the negatives for perception and reality of what we need to correct for, and make that the focus. And no, the GM doesn't always have to be the one. I'm just saying that in some circumstances, it might have to be a shorter line between point A, point B, and how things get facilitated, as long as it's still being overseen. That whole, maybe it is the front desk person that answers.
The GM never, ever, I have not seen situations where the GM is actually composing the words on the page or typing it in. But you know what? Focusing on a mission as a team and letting everybody have some skin in the game makes them more aware during their day of how important it is the way they treat people. Whether it's just, smiling at guests when they arrive can be just enough, and making that person feel really welcome may be just enough to not have complaints at the hotel. Even if something went wrong, they were greeted so graciously, they felt cared for. And okay, so something went wrong, so I'm just going to, I'm not worried about it. But if the GM or if just the night auditor is the only person who's looking at them and just plopping away things, it's so fake. Or if just the accounting guy or the front office manager is doing it on his own, it's not impacting the team. It has to be that everybody knows this is what we want to achieve. We want to be great. We want to make sure everybody's happy. And when somebody isn't, we listen to them and we make judgments accordingly. We make modifications accordingly, not to hurt the company, but that protects the company, and also takes care of the guest. Mm-hmm. That means that you're going to have less problems to deal with. You know what's heartbreaking for the staff? Time sucking for the staff. You know what's taking their time? Dealing with problems. If you stop having the problems or you diminish the problems greatly, you have more time to do other things and you feel better about your job, and you stop looking for other careers because you're getting, I'm so tired of dealing with complaints every day and nobody seems to do anything to change it. So I'm just going to do something else because I've lost my strength. If you have many complaints, it's taking your time. If you have fewer complaints, and you have a positive way of dealing with them, it's not sucking your time and energy away. It's just, hey, here's an opportunity. How can we make things better? And people feel good about it. When they're drowning in complaints and dealing with them every day, it's soul crushing.
True. Okay. Well, I'm not trying to take it away from you, but I'm going to take the privilege of having Melissa with us. I'm just looking at some of Robert's stuff while we're talking too. So I think we made some great points, but by all means, but I'm going to go over and ask if Melissa has a favorite conversation, because I'm just reading I had a suspicion on something and the article just reaffirmed it from what Robert sent over. So I was just going.
I actually just want to stick on the reviews for just like 1 minute.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I just want to make sure you weren't
going off on a tangent. I'm going off on a tangent on this one. I have not spent, because I literally have zero time on my hands to do this, but I haven't spent time on TripAdvisor or anywhere else really looking through reviews lately, knowing that everybody's understaffed at this point. And I'm wondering what percentage of reviews are specifically calling out definitely shortage of staffing issues and how those are being addressed. So I had a call with a client yesterday. I asked them flat out, I was like, are you guys like everybody else and understaffed? And what are you guys doing? And they're like, yeah, we're completely understaffed. We can't get enough people. We're outsourcing. We've got multiple staffing agencies. We've never had to do this before. And I said, okay, given that, number one, how are you handling your rooms? Are you not selling all your rooms? How are you handling it? And they're like, well, no, we're not closing off any rooms, but we've raised our rates. You know the story, blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay. And they said that, we're just offering trash and towels on a daily basis for housekeeping. I said, have you notified your customers before they get there so they know what to expect? And I was happy to hear the response that yes, it is in multiple pre-arrival emails. It's in the confirmation, once they make the booking, et cetera, et cetera. So yay, check for a client doing what they're supposed to be doing. But I'm wondering what percentage of hotels are really doing that so that people don't leave those negative reviews.
I've seen exactly what you're saying, where things were closed or services were limited, and they still paid full price, and they were not told in advance what to expect. And people will understand if you tell them what to expect. Of course, I think a lot of people are saying, okay, but now that it's a resort and it's full, and you're charging me, you're not charging
more. They're charging me more than you ever have.
And yet you still not bringing it back.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't have a full breakfast, but I can go across the street to a restaurant and have a full breakfast, but not in the hotel. It doesn't make sense to some people, and fair enough. But yes, there are still cases of that happening now, where and maybe it's because it's so fluid that hotels are tired of changing it. I don't know.
My hope is that they just understand that these expectations need to be set early on, and it would alleviate so many of those negative reviews, because I think if at least you tell people what is going on, they're certainly more likely to be more understanding.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Because let's face it, we are not a normal leisure traveler. I think most Americans, while they hear that, everything's open again, or a lot of things are open again, unemployment rates are going back down again, they don't realize that hospitality can't get their workforce back.
Mm-hmm.
To them, everything is going back to normal. So I think there's got to be an education to the consumer about this.
Yeah. Well, I do know that responding to reviews is something that can be outsourced, but I would just say only positive reviews. I would never let somebody else speak for me on a negative review.
Okay, I'm going to try to act like I'm brilliant on this, where I brought up the Google Apple thing. I think what we have is a different, what we have, maybe it was a failure to communicate. I think we as travelers are going in with a chip on our shoulder. Aren't you thankful I'm here? And the hoteliers, who are burnt, toasted, and fried, are thinking, aren't you happy I'm still in business? And you got a lot of both self-thinking people of, what, this is what we have, be thankful we have it. And you have a lot of people, be thankful I'm here, why don't you have what you're charging me for? And it's going like this in a lot of ways. I think we talked about on the show a couple of months ago, actually. I brought up the idea that we have to get our teams well trained in the fact that we're going to have some very angry people, because aspirationally and anticipation of when I finally make that, this is my first trip thing, I got a lot riding on that. This is a build up for me. It's like, not to talk about, it's like first date stuff, it's like, hey, this is a big deal. And so going there, and then the coffee that was for free in the lobby isn't there, or it's empty, and I go ballistic on it. My team, or the team at the hotel, has to realize it may not be about the coffee at all. It may be about, this is just the last straw of yet more stuff that person's been disappointed with by the time that I get to them and try to solve their world's problems. To Adele's point, that's our focus. Hey, I don't know why you're mad, but it's my job to make sure that I can do whatever I can to not make you mad, or to find a way to make it better for you if it's in my power to do so.
Yeah.
With the caveat being, I have limitations too. I can't solve world peace. Okay. So I can make sure the coffee gets filled, and I can apologize all day long that you were the unfortunate soul that found it empty. But at the end of it, that's all I can really do for you. I can't give you your room for free for a week just because the coffee ran out. Sorry, it's not going to happen.
But if we start with sharing a goal and a vision and an expectation for our team of, you know what, you guys are wonderful. I can give you lots of examples of how you're wonderful, because I can see all these wonderful reviews that have been written. Even if you have a lot of terrible reviews, you still have a lot of 5-star reviews probably as well, that you can say, look, you can do this, and let's all do it together, and let's support each other and be humble. You were saying before, Lauren, about you should just be grateful I'm here. Well, I'm sorry, but no business you should just be grateful I'm here.
I agree with you, but that's the probable reality of it. There are people because remember, those people in the hotel don't own it. They're not getting the derived benefit of the fact the business is operating. They're getting a paycheck. And after a certain 80 or 100-hour week for the 6th, 7th, and 8th month, no vacation, no breaks, no nothing, and they have to cover for when everybody is sick, and you get in this martyrdom complex. And from that, you get this intolerance going on. And yes, it's toxic. And yes, I'm not condoning it. It's just a reality of overstressed, overworked people in any environment. They get where they've lost their reason for value, other than the fact that they, are getting paid or whatever it is. It's just a reality that some staffers, especially if they don't do what you say, which is being involved and being engaged and being supported and being given empowerment to do things and so forth, get to the intolerance of, it is what it is. Okay. I can't fix the world for you, and they get that attitude. It's just, hey, be glad that you still have a place to come to. It's an unfortunate circumstance, but you get it in restaurants, you get it in retail. I'm not saying we have a monopoly on this. I mean, there's stores that are like, be thankful I'm still here. You guys haven't shown up for a year, and I'm still able to squeeze a penny to make sure the door opens. It's just a reality of some of these people's perspectives that will get past. But the good ones have done things like you talk about. There's like, hey, look, we're all in this together. We really need everyone's insight and input, and so forth. To flip this just a little bit, I don't want to do it all just about reviews, but that's also very responsive. We're not being as proactive. And I say this, I love the fact that Robert had thrown out his newsletter, and the Expedia one is something that I have been suspicious of, because I watched it with Airbnb, I've watched it with VRBO, and now Expedia is doing the same thing. And that is, they're personalizing the purpose of travel. They're focusing in on what makes travel enjoyable and why they're the choice to make for it. Airbnb is my example. If you've already seen the commercials, they're talking about being able to bring your pet. How cool is it to bring your friends together that finally get vaccinated and hang out in a space that you don't have to share with anybody else? Your big old living room, bring your dogs. There's a pool you can make them swim in if you want to try it. That thing, okay? And then VRBO did the same thing. And now Expedia, as the article pointed out, I don't know if the link up for the article, sorry, is all about, they're putting their chips in the middle of the table on this. They're doing one of the largest ad campaigns they have run in 5 years. That's pre-COVID by far, okay? Of an effort to because Expedia is a content machine, and there hasn't been a whole lot of content. There's a lot of regurgitated content over and over and over for a lot of stuff, but it's not a whole lot of content. And so they're needing people to travel to validate the value proposition of what they're marketing about. And so they're talking about all chips in, biggest budget in 5 years. And it's all about personalization of travel. Not personalization is what I pick and choose, the value of why I'm traveling for what I want to do with whom I'm traveling with. And they showed some campaign examples in the article about it's not be me by myself, it's who I travel with. So it went from the focus of where you're going, it went from the focus of where you're staying to the focus of why you're traveling and who you're doing it with, which in its way is brilliant. Gosh, those guys are smart, because it's the same track that Airbnb and VRBO went with. It's not about where and how, it's about why, the stuff.
Start
Well,
with why.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Start with why, like the book,
Yeah.
Simon Sinek says.
Yeah, right. Start with why. Why is this way? And they did a great job of it. And when we talk about reviews and so forth, that is a response reflect. That's you have proactiveness in how you respond to this information, and in turn how you adapt to make sure it doesn't go into a negative response. As I often said, there's always there's two issues to a problem: the current solution and the future solution. How solving the issue now, and then how do you learn from it so that it doesn't reoccur again, if it's possible. So that's a reaction kind of thing. Response reviews are reaction kind of things. You learn and adapt from them, but they're going to the front of the line. They're going over and saying, we're going to talk to you about the things that make it valuable for you to make these types of decisions. Who are you going to go with? Why are you going to go with them? If that's the case, we have lots of options of where you think you might want to go do this. So they're really going farther up the stream in their dialogue. They're not talking about here's room and rates, here's destination information, here's what you want to know about us, or even one step earlier going, this is what we think you should be interested in. They're actually going farther up the river and going over and saying, so who are you traveling with? What you want to do? They're going they're going into the Google-esque world of, okay, it's aspirational discovery. What are you thinking about here? So anyway, I can see Melissa's reading.
I'm trying to read.
Yeah.
I really want to watch the video of James Corden. I love that man. I would watch
he's brilliant,
karaoke 24 hours a day if I could.
Yeah, he is brilliant. He has a really neat delivery. There's just people that and I give Tim Peter actually credit for this as well. I will always, to the day is long, be a marvel of Tim running a panel on the stage. He's a person that, without adding his content to it, which is something I can't not do. I mean, I'll be like, my opinion is, he's the opposite of that. He is the solicitor of dialogue without actually having to preface it. He just brings it out of people, and I'm just in awe. Like, that is a skill I do not have. He just is one of those people that says something and the person goes off in a direction that he wanted them to go. I'm totally impressed by that all the time. And to the point, he does the same thing. It's like, he gets solicitation of dialogue that isn't because he said, let's talk about this. It's he created the circumstance that made the person talk about it. I just think it's brilliant. I really do. It's one of those, like, you respect it from afar. It's like Jay Hubbs. Jay Hubbs is another guy I respect. He can listen to somebody and deal with people that I would be like, I'm out of here. I mean, I have no tolerance for some people that are self-important, totally dominated. That's just their thing. I'm sitting there going, no, I have to poke the tiger. I have to poke the tiger. You're too arrogant. You're too self-centered. He's kind of one of those persons that just picks his time. And I'm like, wow, me, no. My heart's on my sleeve and my opinion's in my mouth. It's.
Well, did you ever notice? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, speaking of self-aware and self-arrogant people, I have to go meet with Stuart in person. We're going to go record an episode of the podcast in person again. This is our second week in a row of seeing each other face to face after a year.
That's awesome. Yeah, he said you guys did the first podcast in person last time. So
yes, this is our second one.
What topic do we get to look forward to?
Did she listen to you? Was it Tamara that asked you that?
Yes.
Yeah. See, you're famous.
I'm internet famous.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Well,
it is a brilliant podcast. You guys have amazing functional information, and you guys have it in an amazing format too, because you keep it interesting. Just to promote the hell out of you about it, because it is a brilliant broadcast. It's a multi-award winning podcast.
2 times.
Both. No, every time you've applied for an award, you've won it. Just think about it.
We have 100% win rate. Yes.
100% win rate on your award status for your podcast.
Yes.
But it is one of those things that I have seen it where Stuart has been at a conference and somebody's like, "You're Stuart from the podcast." I've seen it. I've seen the fanboy. Yeah, I've seen it happen. So yes, and I give credit to you, not him, for that. It's like, it wouldn't be near as smart if Melissa wasn't there. I'm just saying.
He's a rocket scientist, though. I mean, literally. So,
But he throws it around a little too much. I think he just worked on some secondary rocket stuff. I don't think he was on the primary fuel consumption thing. That's a rocket science. When you're doing fuel consumption ratios, then you're a rocket science. Right then, up to that point, you're a valve controller,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, just not rocket scientist too. But no, well, please say hi to Stewie for me.
I will.
Not that I don't bug him enough over the course of the week anyway, but it's always fun to bug him. I've been trying to push that whole VR thing with him, given his need for visuals as much as he does, because it is close to the eyes and stuff. But Ed tried it, and he ended up selling the headset because he got motion sickness.
Oh wow!
Ooh, interesting.
There is, and it is. I mean, when you're there, you're there. I mean, virtually, and there's, you can do it standing up, where you put a little zone around you to make sure you don't run into things in your real world. I do it sitting in a spinny chair because I'm lazy, and also I'd fall over. I try to stand up for too long doing some of the stuff I do. But either way, you are very much in it. And you do the roller coaster stuff or the flying stuff, and not that I maybe have done it a couple times. I fell out of my chair, but it is very, very engaging. Yes, so yes. But anyways, well, Melissa, thanks for jumping in, and have fun with the podcast. What's the topic you guys are going to record on, so we can get a sneak peek?
We are talking about differentiating your hotel so it stands out.
That's a good one.
That is a good one, because it's also, that's a good one. Okay, I'll have to listen to it. Not that I don't already listen to them all already. Just I'll make sure. Yeah. Now, when is that going out next week, or when are you guys going? I
believe it should be published next week. Yes.
Which episode is it now? What number are you guys on now?
I have no idea. That's Stuart's job to keep up. 180 something. I can't keep up with numbers. I'm lucky I remember like my birthday at this point.
That's really weird for you to say that. I'm just saying, because you are the numbers person.
I know, but there's so many numbers crammed in there that there's no room left for anything.
Yeah, I try to tell my wife that too. She just gives me the look of like, no, you just forgot. No, it's just so much stuff in there. And she's like, yeah, useless stuff. Anyways, all right. Well, for people that do want to find this podcast we're talking about, where do they go?
Fueltravel.com/podcast. You can find all things related to fuel. You can find me on LinkedIn or on Clubhouse if you have an Apple device, and I'm happy to connect with anybody who's interested.
Now, you guys going to do a separate club room? I mean, I know that I have the privilege of you jumping on ours, but I mean, you guys going to start doing your own room or anything like that? I don't
see that in the near future.
It's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time.
It's good time. I have learned more in the past month from these Clubhouse rooms than I have in my entire career. I'm not even exaggerating.
It is amazing listening to. I mean, there are some brilliant, and you're always very surprised by sometimes the people that are in the room.
Yes.
You'll look at quick bio, and you're like, you own how many? What? You just look at it as like, wow, okay, sure, and then you get some amazing. Who's that guy that does the stats? That was also he jumped in with us. Amir. Oh,
I don't remember his last name, but his first
name.
Yeah,
right.
Ilan.
Huh?
Amir Ilan, is it that? No.
I don't know. He does a lot of. He's with an agency as well, isn't he? And he does a lot of data work as well. When they first started talking, and I'll be honest with you, I got a little bias on the fuel travel side, because as soon as somebody started, well, I've done this survey stuff. I'm like, oh, really? Have you now? Well, I have.
No, it was a good study. It was a good survey.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think it's Amir Ilan.
Yeah. It was really good data.
Yes.
He speaks exceptionally well, and good content. Every time he pops in the room, I'm always like, oh, I want to try to drag him up on stage because he's really good like that. But yeah, it's neat how the many people you're running into, but it can be a huge black hole for time. I mean, because you're just like, oh, I don't want to leave now, because without it being recorded, if you're not there, you're not there. You miss whatever the dialogue is, and it changes like this. I mean, we do it in our own room where we're talking about one thing, and then 2 minutes later, it's a whole different topic. And then somebody will pop in. This guy Rob popped into the room a few days ago, and just totally took it in an amazing direction. We're like, wow, was that insightful? Like a little golf cap in the back. Like, yay, bravo. Just good stuff. But anyway, you got to run. Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.
I put a link from some stats from Amir in the.
It might be okay. So it is the same one, yeah. He's a really nice guy and really speaks well, and yeah, it was neat to run across him. But how's your room doing in
I was like a guest host in somebody else's room yesterday. I really want to focus my time on something that I'm having trouble really getting as far with it as I'd like to. So I'm trying not to get too caught up in the club room more than once a week. And when Stuart and Ed talk in the morning at 8 a.m., I could listen to them while I'm walking, but I found that it's too irresistible to want to contribute something. And then I'm outside and there's the wind and everything, and I'm out of breath because I'm going like this. So I sound like this.
And it changes the clubhouse in a whole different direction. Nobody is like, well, now, okay. It's that kind of room we're in, is it? Yeah. We do have some people. It is fun because some people do. Of course, it's like a podcast in this sense, or a radio show you're listening to that you just listen to it. But it does allow the affordability that if it is allowed by the people moderating it to say, hey, it's open forum, come on up. That you don't, in some ways, at one point go over and say, wait a minute, no, or I want to say something about that. And you catch people in some pretty amazing background noises. Like you can definitely tell when they're driving. You can definitely tell when there's family around or pets, or when they're outside and they're trying to like cover from the wind, but it's hard to hear them anyway. But they're so inspired by the conversation, which is the biggest compliment you can get, is that they're so engaged with what you're talking about that they felt compelled, regardless of what was going on around them, to join the conversation. And everybody that I've introduced it, because it's by invite only for those unfamiliar with Clubhouse. It's an iOS only platform app right now, which I think is silly, but also in a quasi way brilliant, because it is making it even that more exclusive as to whom for now. It makes it more lucrative to like, ooh, I'm on it. They're still doing the invite thing. So you have to be invited into the platform. You can obviously ask to be invited and it can tell you, hey, you joined, which I think there's no real strong gateway to that. But I've sent out some invites to people with the caveat, as we just said, hey guys, it's a time, just it's a very engrossing, because there's a room about everything. It's like the old version. Remember when chats first came out way back, like late 90s, it's like the chat rooms where people, and you didn't know what was going to go on. And there was some conversations like you didn't want to know what was going on. Like, no, we're done. We're not going to go there. But it has that kind of, virility of chasing and talking and so forth, which we've always done on this show with the medium that we have, and Clubhouse is kind of that on the audio only version of it in a lot of ways too. But I as much as I applaud them not allowing you to record it, it's bummed because we've had some brilliant conversations.
It's so frustrating. I would love to listen to it at a later time. Like maybe just before bed or when I first wake up, but I'm not getting out of bed yet and I just want to sit there and listen, or I'm sitting out on the patio. That would be really good to listen to it afterwards. And then I don't have to be tempted to join the conversation.
Right.
Or if there were two things that I would change in addition to having it recorded, or having the option of it can be recorded, I would make it possible for somebody to join without actually showing up if they don't want to, and just listen without going, oh, Adele is here. Hey, Adele, don't you want to come up? No. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. And then number two is sometimes I want to just be able to put something in the chat like I can when I'm watching a show like this. And if I'm watching a broadcast that's happening at the moment, something live on LinkedIn, I can put chats in and I can feel every bit as part of the conversation as if I was on the stage, and I don't have to, I can do, I really love that. I can't stand the fact that I can't chime something in just by saying a few words on the side.
Yeah, it there is a good and a bad to it in that sense, and yes, each channel has its medium of value, and I think Clubhouse for me, I mean, I can listen to podcasts and do listen to podcasts all the time, and you can see the importance of podcasts in a variety of ways in the past year and plus. Is you have almost everybody that's in the news medium has their own podcast. Every TV show has its own podcast now. Everybody has that as an alternative channel for people. Now Clubhouse comes along, and it's a engagement podcast. It's kind of like the old radio station esque things. Hey, Doug, listeners call up and join the conversation kind of thing. So it has this engagement possibility. But the other caveat is if you're not on the show, you don't get to participate and or also hear what was said. So, we're going to be launching the channel next week, the Hospitality Marketing Channel, where these shows are now going to be broadcasted on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Prime, Fire Sticks or whatever, and Google as a subscription service so that people can actually watch these things. I can't record Clubhouse because it's violation of policy. I think it's brilliant that they have them. But what I've started doing now is recapping my Clubhouse in my podcasts as well. Because some great content comes out of them, I have to paraphrase it, obviously, and put it in context into the storyteller as the tale. It's in my perspective of how I thought it valuable. But at least it doesn't get to be lost content outside of the dialogue of the people that were there. But there's been some incredibly good insights. Some incredibly good results. I mean, Amy, the one that Stuart keeps touting around, that went over and saw that there were people coming into their hotel all the time to stay to get vaccinations because they couldn't get it in New York or larger cities. And they're going upstate to do it. And she went over and reached out to the local news media, and then she got featured in the news and amplified the business even more, and that literally came out of a dialogue that Stuart and Ed were having at 8 a.m. about media and being sensitive to being able to use them and leverage them and so forth. So it's been very interactive for a lot of people. And as another platform. So yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah. Couple of things. I know that Robert sent out the list late, which is, thanks Robert for doing the list. It makes it hard to go over and say, hey, look at this great article. And nobody's looked at it yet. It's like, where is that article? But it does lend some of the things we talked about earlier about adaptability and so forth. Tim had his article, which we shared.
Yeah.
Robert has more articles about those things that we shared to it as well. But I think one of the other aspects of this week that's come through on the chat rooms as well has been this: we got to stop coaching and just start letting the team play the game. We talk about all the adaptabilities that we need, but we're talking about it around it. We're talking about all the things that you could and think about doing, but there's not a lot of action going on. The reality of it, I mean, I was being very pragmatic in our discussion about burnout and so forth, is just to pull the pendulum the other way a little farther. But there is also the fact that there is real decisions being made. Like, to be frank, do they hire a me or a you? Do they hire a revenue manager? Do they hire a marketing person? Do they hire a sales person? Or because of this relocation, reevaluation, is the first financial decision, third party? Because we talked about labor a lot these past couple of weeks, and raising salaries and or raising hourlies are long-term decisions. You can't tell somebody, hey, I gave you a raise 3 months ago because I really need you to hang around. Now that I don't need you to hang around as much, I got to bring your salary back down. That conversation doesn't happen. Or
but people are giving bonuses.
Yeah. So there's incentive purchases like, hey, signing bonuses and or performance bonuses and or carrots on the end of the stick for people to go over and do stuff with. What's Robert saying? You never look at the articles when I send them earlier either. That's the beauty of the show. You're right, Robert. We ignore you at all levels. No. The financial decisions are, okay, has revenue management proved itself that it doesn't need to be in a chair in a hotel? Can it be done as good, if not better, externally from a centralization or third party? And can it be successful, and is it cost effective to do that? In a salary comparison. Marketing. Do we really need somebody at the property that is doing it, or do we just need somebody at the property that is policing it? that's responsible for the functionality and integration. With what you do from a reputation perspective, do we need a dedicated warm body at the property? Or do we need somebody that is the liaison for the property for someone with you, that you can work and facilitate with? So I'll ask you from just that perspective first.
Yeah, I know for what I do, I empower the team. I give them the guidance that they need so that they can do it. That is because I can't deliver great service from my office in South Carolina if the hotel is somewhere else. The leadership has to do it. And I really see the work as it's about inspiring the team and helping them, and it actually helps them have more energy and less stress. When you work this way, you have more energy and less stress because you see things going in a positive direction, and you're getting a lot of appreciation from above. But I can't deliver that because I'm not the boss of that property. The boss of that property needs to go around and saying, "Well done. I really like the way you handled that." I can't do that. I can't give the pat on the. You don't actually pat people anymore, but I can't give the proverbial pat on the back to somebody who I noticed really went out of their way for somebody. I can't do that. I can't pin signs and things in the back office, but I can take someone who's maybe inexperienced, only has a certain level of experience, but is a savvy person with a great attitude and a great aptitude. And I can show them how to perform like somebody who's been doing it for many, many years, because they can take my experience and a system that has worked at so many different places and apply it. So in that way, I can support them, not necessarily they don't need a me on the team, but they do need somebody who's going to embrace the work.
Okay. To get more personal for me, because I was often approached with, if somebody's learning what you do, because I often, when I work with clients, say I'm willing to also teach whom you want internally to understand the methodologies of this. I go through a progression of relationship, because whenever I get into a relationship with a client, just as introspection, I also have an end goal in mind. I'm not there to find residual demand. I don't try to find some symbiotic demand that they always need me around for, like, oh, that's what I do. If you want this done, I have to be the one that does it. I'm like, look, I'm here to solve what it is you're bringing me on board for. We establish the goal, we establish the KPIs, we establish what needs to succeed with it. When we're done with that, if there's nothing else you need me to do, I ride off in the sunset, very proud of what I've done. Or if you find something else for me to do, I'll stay around and do it. I'll also show your team how to do things. So I go from a facilitator that does everything to a policeman, to a counselor, to a guru, which is just break class when you need me the next time, and I'm done. With that being said, people go and say, well, that seems very, that doesn't seem like long-term business success. I'm like, no, there's plenty of people that need this. But the idea of it was, well, if you're teaching people what you're doing, aren't you teaching them out of your job? And I'm like, yeah, just like when I was a manager, I wanted people to work with me that wanted my job, because that way somebody could do my job when I was looking to do something different. So yeah, it's a matter of progression. You can't create a void moving forward. You literally push everything up with you. That being said, how did you transition with what you did? Because you had the title, you had the authority. You walked into one of the library collections. They knew, one, who you were, two, what you were there for, and three, you better listen to her, because when she told you to do it, she not only is right about what she's doing, she also has the authority to make that happen. Now you're walking in with I know what you need to do, but I don't have the title behind me to make you do it. I have to show you why it's valuable for you to make that choice. How did you transition?
You know what? I want to say that at the Library Hotel Collection, I absolutely made it my business. I was always striving to be a consultant. You're the general manager, you're the director of sales and marketing, you're the team on the ground here, but I'm here to help you be the best you can be and have the greatest success. And I'm speaking on behalf of the owner that, we do have a vision of that we want to be the kindest hoteliers, and we want to make sure everybody leaves happy so that we don't have to spend money on advertising. Sorry, Lauren. So that we don't have to spend so much money on advertising because our customers are doing the promotion of the hotel for us. So it was always consultative, because if I just told them what to do, they would not want to do it. But if I gave them ideas on, well, what if we tried it this way? Or what do you think we could do better? Oh, that sounds like a great idea. I only wonder about these unintended consequences. What if we adjusted it a little bit instead? So kind of getting to the point of what you said, but also making sure that these things don't happen. Or what do you think of this? And then we'd all walk away from the table agreeing on something that is much better than the idea I had on my own, or the idea he had on his own, or the idea that she had on their own. We came to something that we can all get behind and say, well, let's test it and see how it works. And that's how we did it. So, I mean, I was never, I certainly believe I never had a dictatorship, and I didn't have the power. They were the general managers and the directors of sales and marketing and the front office managers, etc. But I can tell, I just told them, this is the company vision and goal, and how can we work together to make this happen? How might we accomplish these goals?
Strange as it may sound, I actually spend more time convincing ownerships of how little they have to spend or not to spend. As a matter of fact, suspending contract, because the reality of it is that paying for platforms amplifies the platform's value. That's it, because it's a pay-for-play society that we're in. Facebook's that way, Google's that way. Google has a little bit more of a caveat to it, because they have to provide the value proposition to the user more often, so they still need the organic placement to it, but they've pushed that down so far that it doesn't have the value that it once had, because it has so much Google in front of it. It has the answer box, it has the local information, it has all these things that Google provides. And then quickly it shows whatever anybody's first wanting to pay for, and then it goes into whatever else, organic. To me, the greatest success is based more on the lesser of spend than it is the more of spend, because the lesser you have to actually push the rock down the hill, the more that it moves itself, the better it is. So all that, what you're talking about, I completely agree with, because if that creates that environment, that magical combination of management's connecting to team vision to management's vision, that whole collaboration, that everybody sees the world in similarity, that guest service is the paramount reason why we can do business as successful as we've been, then that's magic when that happens. That doesn't require money to spend it. If anything, the money you're spending is to amplify what it already is doing for itself. So, in that sense, but the other to it though is, and I'll push, because it's the day to push back on Adele and some stuff. Hey, I think your title walked in before you as well, though, even though you wanted to act that way.
Sure.
I think, because I've worked on both the property and corporate side. I'm sorry, anybody corporate, even if it was an administrative assistant, because she was in the same office, I treated them differently than if it was somebody else. Just because they were there, whether they had the authority or not, okay, whether they took the authority that they had or not, they still were treated differently because of how what they represented or the means of what they could do. So I think in some ways to that. But for you, you have the success history that you've had, you have the reputation in the industry that you have. And so that obviously walks in the room with you when you come in to talk to these people. And I guess figuratively walk in the room, because the past year we haven't walked in any rooms. But the other is that you're convincing people of what they need to do. Do you get beyond the corporate people, or do you get to actually talk to the property people now?
You know what? I've had very, like short-term conversations with multiple individuals, and I feel that they respond really positively, because and what I'm saying feels like a relief to them, because I think they leave feeling very empowered. And I try to always talk to, DOS, assistant GM or GM. These are the people that are more or less at the head of the hotel. I
Mhm.
think that I should be targeting more the ownership, to be honest with you, because I don't, I think I can only get so far in a certain way unless I do that. But, as far as being hired, it's generally mostly been outside the industry that
Mhm.
have wanted insights on how to be more hospitality focused.
That
You
makes perfect sense considering that so many people are being hired from our industry because of the talent sets that they're created from it.
Yeah,
That empathetic awareness, that in tune perspective of other people's interest, needs, challenges, whatever, which is really the core of what we tend to do mostly anyway, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a spa or golf course. It's that, how can I help you? You know,
yeah. I think that you and I are oddballs in a way, because I think that you and I share that we really just want to help people, and
Mhm.
we want to go in and set them up for success, and set them on a path of continuous improvement, and giving them good mindsets and everything, so they can be strong on their own. And then whenever you need help, I'm here for you.
Sure.
Let me know, and I'll coach you through the individual thing. I want to try to help as many hotels as possible. So I'm not, if I were looking to just stick with one hotel or one brand, I would take a position at a hotel, which would be much easier for me to do, to be honest, I believe, than
Mhm.
it is to set up my own company. But I really want to be able to impact more people, which
Mhm.
is why I'm working on a book and an online course too.
I was about to say, please do the course. I mean,
I will.
first off, you have the yeah, you have all the pieces that make a wonderful dissertation course for people to learn how better to tackle these issues. And because it is amazing in what we do, we come across a variety of people that are incredibly skilled at what they do. And then they do something and you're like, wow, that's a blind spot for you, isn't it? That's just something you don't see that way. There's some great hospitality people that are very logistically minded. They see things in a very linear way and or progression of things, but they don't have the emotional attachment to it. But they're exceptionally good at the facilitation of service. And that's the difference, I think, between the service and the hospitality. Hospitality is an emotional mindset. Hospitality is an emotional connection. Service is a function. I'm providing service. I'm making sure you have what you need when you need it, what it is you want, whatever it is. That's a service.
It's transaction.
Hospitality is that magic that happens. And I think I mentioned it from an article I was reading. I thought it was very well written. When you go have a dining experience I'm going pre-COVID, obviously, but we had dining experience where your wine was never low to a point where you noticed. The water was never warm to a point you were like noticing. Your food was always presented well. It was disappeared when it was done cordially, that you weren't feeling uncomfortable that you ate ahead of your guests, which, they're still eating and your plates disappeared and now you're sitting there with nothing and they're still eating. That's not proper decor. But all of those service points where the server was engaged with you when he needed to be and invisible when he wasn't or they weren't, that's amazing hospitality. That's the sensitivity to what you're doing. It's not the timing rule, like I better go check since I dropped food on the table. It's not somebody coming up with an armful of food laying on top of each other going, who's got the burger, and auctioning the food off at the table. It's knowing where it goes, how it goes, presenting the plate correctly so that the items are correctly in front of you. These all sound like very perturby little things, but having been a formal waiter, that's the magic that happens for somebody that is so in tune with what they're doing for you. And that's just a restaurant example. Hotels have all their examples too. The room amenities that are laid out the way that are most comfortable for you, because the housekeeper was sensitive to how they saw the room when they cleaned it, to know how they left it so that that's the way you wanted it. Those things. Go ahead.
I would add to that all those details and all that care is really important. But on top of that, this is my theme of the month. polite and professional is too low a bar for our hospitality industry. We need to make sure everybody feels cared for, appreciated, and respected at every encounter. You know, not just when they're right in front of us, but in the reservation process, you know, when we pick up the phone, in a pre-stay email or a post-stay email, every single thing that we put out there must make them feel like we care about them. And that's why, you know, I always refer to, I'm a not very unique person in the fact that I'm vegetarian, and everybody has, you know, dietary preferences these days, it seems like. But when I don't see vegetarian foods on the menu, or, you know, a nice option, something more than just a salad, I don't think you care for me, or I don't think you appreciate my business. Because if you did, surely you would know that there are so many others like me who want to feel welcome in that place. And I don't want to have to beg for you to do something special for me. I'm just going to go someplace else next time that appreciates me enough to have taken the time to think about me. So even in the things where we're not face to face, we're showing what we're made of, and we're showing how much we care about people. So when you are welcomed in a way that makes you feel cared for, appreciated, and respected, and throughout the meal, somebody is attentive to you, that makes you feel that way. And when you leave and they say, "Thank you so much for being our guest. We can't wait to see you again." Those little touches make all the difference. And that starts with the mindset. And the mindset is everything. And it's up to the leaders to inspire their teams to access their strength and their resilience and their ability to out-charm their clients, so that they're not getting yelled at. You know, people won't be upset about a lot of little things if they just feel like you care about them.
Sure.
Then they'll blow it off.
Well, I mean, even just going back to the hotel example, is that there's a difference between a housekeeper that is obligated to say hi to you because you're standing in front of them, than it is to somebody that's having a smile on their face, that's doing the stuff, that's humming, that's happy to do what they're doing, and you happen to come across them and they're like, "Oh, hi!" You know, wow. People can determine genuineness of this. We have this 520 rule and all this on stuff where it's like, "Okay, hi, how are you? Good to have you. Thank you for being our guest." It sounds like the automated, "Hi, how are you today?" Nobody really is asking you that question. They're just saying those words, okay?
Yes.
But you can tell the genuineness of a culture of the people, whereas you said, "Thanks for being our guest. We're so happy you're being here," okay? I know I was being negative when I said we have people that hotels that are on burnout, that be thankful that I'm here, and then we have guests that be thankful I'm here with you. But there also is the reverse of that, where we're thankful to see each other, where you're happy to see them walk in the door going, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here." But we've hit that point where there's some hotels that are overwhelmed and they've oversold themselves, and the staff knows. If anybody knows how the hotel works, the staff does. And they can tell when they're past the ability to perform at the level that's not going to really irritate people, and you're making them do that. There's a grudge against the people that they're making them do this, and there's a grudge against the guest that's the one extra person that they didn't want, where really seriously, you have no idea what my day is like, okay? That unfortunately comes through if there's not the true support of the team, the ownership going over. We have people on Clubhouse that did this. They limited their occupancy, saying this is how many rooms we can sell because this is all we can service. And yes, we have demand for more. This is all we can service, so that we must keep the quality. When the team knows that, they know they're being watched for, and they're going to be happier to see those people because, like, boy, are you lucky? I'm lucky. I can give you the service that is going to make you happy. You're going to be happy with our service. And guess what? I'm happy that you're that person. And yes, it is going to cost you more to be here, but it's going to be the money you're spending is going to be validated in the service we give, not the "I'm so sorry, but we sold you a room we couldn't service, and it's at a price you have to pay, and you want to be here in tough kahoogies," So.
Yeah, and hotels have told me that they've had to turn away people that really wanted the room, and they really had the room. They just didn't have the people to clean the room.
And they have that in restaurants too, where people go over and say, "Well, you have empty tables over there." Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
have enough servers.
that
Okay,
happens all the
I'm
time.
sorry. I could sit you there, but then you get really mad at me that you're sitting there for an hour before I get to you because I don't have enough servers. That's my reality of my world right now as a restaurant. And again, trying to explain this, this is where, we put it under the modicum of marketing, but it's actually communication.
Yes.
At this point, that information is about communication. It's about letting you know this is what we're doing. I think Melissa pointed that out earlier, that you lay out what's being done. You emphasized with what you're saying. This is what we have. This is what we're going to be doing. Be genuine, be sincere, and be truthful. And lay this out so that you understand that even when you walk in and you had to wait 45 minutes because you came early to your point, or we ran late because whatever, it's because of these things. Yes, I have empty tables, but I can't sit you there. I don't have the staff to give you the service that we expect of ourselves for you. And our kitchen isn't, we can only serve so many meals based on the crews that we have. And we have restaurants down here in Florida because we've been in season, and also Florida's, and politics aside, been an open state for a long time of
Hmm.
coming down. And a lot of the restaurants have just been truly, completely overwhelmed. There is no way they can facilitate their business. There's lines of people waiting when they close the restaurant at night, still waiting. It's just this. It's like a food kitchen almost, and demand services up for deliveries. And of course, the restaurants try to gear towards that, so they don't say that negatively. I live by restaurants where the back of the restaurant's now the delivery door, because they can't even have the guys come in and pick up the stuff in the front door because there's people in the front door waiting, you know and they get the snide remarks, "Oh, great, somebody's sitting at home eating, and I'm still waiting to sit here with you and eat." They've had those snide remarks. So they have delivery services out the back door. In the kitchen, that's way beyond the seating capacity of the restaurant the kitchen was designed for. And so they're trying to handle both the influx of both ends of the restaurant, and it's just they're failing. They're failing. And some restaurants have decided literally to close for 2 or 3 days. We're not in business Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And it's not because we don't have the business. It's because we have too much business, and our team's toast. Our team is done. And I'm not. And then some of the restaurants are making the news where it's like, I'm not going to do that to my crew. First off, I have open positions I can't fill. The people that I have, I'm not going to burn them out. I'm closed. I would love to have the business.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So all said, "Ooh, all right, we're at that point." We didn't, Robert. Sorry, we ran out of time for you to say. He's not even on in the chat room anymore. But to Robert's point, he does put a wonderfully curated list together. Today was just a little late for us to try to roll it into the show that much. But it's at Rock Cheetah. You can go and sign up for it. It's for free. It's a great list. At bit.ly/Rock Cheetah, all lowercase, no space. By all means, I highly recommend it. It's great content. Melissa and Field Travel, thank you for joining us today as well. They have, as they just rolled out last week, their consumer sentiment study number 12, which has some really interesting consistencies, and it has some really interesting changes, as with all surveys for it. Everybody else, we'll just talk about bad about them just because it is. Actually, it's funny because with Clubhouse, I have them over the course of the week. So I feel really bad by dishing on them because I usually talk to them during the week. So I feel, it's like, I've actually gone to a lot of them. It's like, Dean, I feel so bad about Dean. So Tuesday, I had to get my second shot. And they moved it from the morning, which I originally had scheduled, to literally at noon when I was doing the Clubhouse. I'm like, okay, well, and you and I've had this discussion. Consistency is king about these things. You have to always be there. So I'm soliciting everybody, but it's like, please, the one, Ed and Stuart said, can you just run the show for me a little bit? I asked the other people on it that you're always regularly there and so forth. And Dean says, well, I'll try to make it. I might be late. He says, great. I'm literally standing in line, 2 people in front of me to get the shot. And I start the show going, at least I get it started, whatever. And as I get up to the front of the line, Dean pops on the show. I'm like, Dean, so good to see you. Great. Thanks here's your moderation. Have fun with the show. Blink, and I disappear. I tried to reach him out later. It's like, so Dean, how'd it go? He says, it was good. It was because you know what it's like to run these things, that you have to be kind of flexible as to the dialogue, and you have to, if you're not just going to sit there and stare at the screen, or metaphorically, so you have to come up with something to dialogue about. And Dean, he has his thing, MetaSearch. I will always go to Dean about MetaSearch. He is brilliant about MetaSearch, and he's really smart about a lot of other stuff. I don't really. he doesn't give himself as much credit on so many other things. He's really very knowledgeable about a lot of stuff. He just is one of those people that if he doesn't feel totally qualified speaking about it, he won't really talk about it. And it's like, Dean, dude, you could really open up a lot broader about what you're talking about. I mean, I say the same about you in lots of ways too. You're brilliant at what you do, and you're really brilliant about a lot of stuff, but you just don't talk about it as much as you do. You're usually yours is reputation, man. And I will always tell you about that. But by the same token, you know a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I was VP of Sales, Marketing, and
Right?
Revenue. It's just
Yeah, so you have lots of teams and stuff. I just, I know this is your lane. It's like with me, people come and say, "Oh, Lauren, we want to do this with marketing," and it's like it's not hospitality. I can help you with people that I know that can do really good with you. I just pick a lane. It's hospitality. That's my lane. I stay there. I mean, I'll have an opinion about anything all day long. You know that. But when it comes to actually doing work stuff, I like to stick with the hospitality thing. That's my thing. But for you, honestly, it's like, man, there's so many other things you talk about sales wise and everything else that I know you could tap into. But I'll just keep dragging you into uncomfortable circumstances. I love that stuff. Anywho's, all right. With that in mind, Adele, for people to find you, where is it they can go?
You can visit my website, adelegutman.com, and you will also find there links to the Hospitality Reputation Marketing Podcast with my co-host Lauren.
Actually, I'm a token host. I'll be honest. I'm the token intro and the token close. The podcast is yours. I'm the producer with the what was the paid off credit of saying yes, it's I'm a part of this. It's like I'm the intro. No fooling about it. I'm the intro to your podcast.
Well, I had a really nice conversation with Stuart Butler, which was the latest one on the podcast, and the next one coming up is my conversation with Christine Trippi, who is a incredible hospitality trainer and the author of Yes is the Answer, or something like that.
Nice. Nice. I'm talking to I think Carrie today. Yeah. You introduced me to somebody. Who was it you just introduced?
Ellie. Sorry, Carrie L.
Yeah, Carrie. Yeah, I'm talking to her too. Yay! So she'll be on the show soon. That's what I'm talking to her. It's like, hey, so what's going on? And she's with Virtuoso, and I mean, anyway, it's going to be. I'm going to find out what she wants to do.
The Hotels Network.
That's it.
A fantastic tool. But now they've come up with a free forever tool. You don't even have to be one of the paid members.
Nice.
But they do have great paid tool.
Cool. Well, with that in mind, for them to find your podcast, what's the link to the podcast?
Come to adelegutman.com and you'll find the podcast there. Okay. And it's on Spotify and Amazon and Apple Podcasts, and my favorite is Audible. It's there too.
Now we do have a Lily who has not been with us for a while, so we're going to give her grief when we finally see her again. Lily Mockerman has her revenue management podcast. She had 2 weeks ago. She's up for a new one coming up, I think. She hasn't sent it to me yet to produce, but she did one, episode number 29. I think it was her last one. She has really fascinating conversations. Dean just started rolling out his new versions of his podcast, and he just rolled out episode 7 last week, I think it was. And Holly Zoba, sales and marketing, she's due for a podcast. She does about once a month, so she isn't worried about the subscription follow-ups as people that are interested when they're looking for the content. She went for that angle, and I'm like, it's yours to do. So she has a sales one, and then yours for reputation, mine for hospitality marketing. We recap this show and Clubhouse now, so we do that, news, tools, and stuff. I always talk about whiz bang tools. And then our Clubhouse, Monday through Thursday at noon. For those who want this show to replay, we do replay it for different time zones. Wednesday, 11:30 a.m. Sydney time and 11:30 a.m. UK time. We do a rebroadcast of the show. We also translate it into 11 languages. There's subtitles anyway. And you can find this and all previous 297 shows at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. For this show, just look for show number 298. And with that, Adele, thank you for the whole time. For joining in and for letting me wrestle with you on some topics.
Pleasure. I know
And
what works.
yeah, and if it isn't, you're already spending too much time on Clubhouse already. I'll see you at noon sometime next week, and if not, I will see you hopefully next Friday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern for this one.
Thank you so much.
All
Have a
right,
great week, everyone.
you too. Bye now.
Bye.